8 goals for 2024. Hey everyone, I'm Matthew Cornwell with Get Taped here in Atlanta, Georgia, one of Atlanta's original audition taping services, which I co-own with my amazingly talented, beautiful wife and best friend, Brooke. New year, new pick. And now, on to our topic. 8 goals for 2024. Happy New Year, everyone. Right about now, the funk soul brother, in a weird mood. Everyone is making their New Year's resolutions to lose weight, maybe have a dry January, maybe read more, spend time with family, etc. I'm working on my own list. But what about goals and resolutions for your acting career? For some of you, the new year is invigorating as it pertains to this. For others, it feels like a burden because you realize you have to update your materials. And wherever you are, know you're okay. Your feelings are real, and I'm not here to invalidate them. But given the calendar reset, it's a good time to step back and take stock of our careers as we enter this new year, and maybe adopt a realistic view of what it will take to succeed in 2024 and every year after that. Let's break this discussion of show business into show and business, and throughout this video, I'll give 8 possible goals or resolutions you might adopt in 2024. First, the show. Have you ever watched a snowboarder just effortlessly glide down a hill, carving through the snow? I mean, it's just gravity at work, right? How hard could it be? For those of you who have snowboarded and remember that first time on the hill, then you know how hard it was and how sore your calves were the next day, along with many other muscles, especially if you fell, like me. What about a professional bowler? They make it look easy. In fact, when I watch professional bowling, I'm secretly hoping they will not get a strike, because then it might finally be interesting. Golf, the same thing. My point with these examples is that if we're not careful, we can get lulled into a sense of feeling like acting should be like gliding down the mountain on a snowboard. Easy, relaxing, peaceful, fun. And it can be, but it takes years, if not decades, to get to that point. You have to train. It's non-negotiable. Now, here in the Southeast United States, we have a subset of actors that I don't think exists to the same extent in New York or LA. At least not to the extent that they exist here. And I'm talking about the hobbyist actor. And I do not use that term pejoratively. To stick with the snowboarder analogy, it's like the person who only gets on the mountain once every 2 to 4 years. That's me. Haven't been on a mountain since 2020. Right before the world shut down. So it's no wonder that when I was out there in 2020, I was full of excitement. And while I did have fun, I didn't get better. That one day on the mountain was just enough time for me to shake off the rust. And so if I get back on the mountain here in 2024, hopefully in February, then I can't expect to get better or even really be the same that I was in 2020. At best, I'll spend the first half of the day shaking off that dust or that rust, whatever you want to call it, and getting to a place where I start to feel good. And then that's when the fatigue sets in, and then I get off the mountain and I start to tighten up, and then I get sore. And when I wake up the next day, there's no chance I'm getting back on that mountain because it just hurts too much. The actor that doesn't train, or hasn't trained since college, or only does that one-day, 3-hour workshop occasionally is like that snowboarder. Sure, you're doing it, but at best, you are maintaining mediocrity. And hey, mediocrity will get you the occasional booking. You might even get on that really cool TV show or book a film where you're brushing shoulders with an Oscar-winning actor. It happens. But if you're still doing this as a part-time hobby, if you're holding on to that rigid 9-to-5 job, squeezing in auditions at lunchtime or after work so as to not rock the boat with the boss, and most importantly, if you're not constantly training, then do not expect growth in your career. Let that sink in for a moment. If you're not willing to do the work, the hard work, the invisible work, the 10,000 hours, and then another 10,000 hours, then you can't expect to reap the rewards. For perspective, I've done at least 10,000 hours just as a reader at Get Taped over the last 12 years. And I've spent at least another 10,000 hours in classes and workshops over the last 20 years. So use any analogy you want. The snowboarding analogy works pretty well. You can also use the gardening metaphor. If you don't tend to the garden, if you don't plant anything, then how do you expect anything to grow? You reap what you sow, right? So before I move on to the first set of goals for 2024, let me just sum up the show discussion. Get specific, very specific about where you are right now in your career and where you want to be in 1 year, 5 years, 10 years. If you have a spouse, some kids, a mortgage, and a job with great health insurance and benefits that you're not willing to give up anytime soon, which of course is totally fine, by the way, then you need to find contentment in just being a hobbyist. But bear in mind, at least based on what I've seen here in the Southeast United States over the last 10 years, your opportunities may dwindle if you stay stagnant as that hobbyist actor. As the market gets more competitive, you just might not get submitted as much, and you eventually might get dropped by your agent. We've actually seen that happen more and more as the years have passed and as this market has grown. And why? Well, because the lifers, the career actors, the ones who are committed to this industry are growing in number. They're pushing those hobbyists a little further to the periphery, making it harder for them to sustain a hobby while they are hungry and are going after the work. I mean, over 20 years ago when I started here in Atlanta, we were all hobbyists. Not true anymore. So if you want this to be your life's work, then get excited. Look at what went well for you last year, despite the double strike, and build on that. Maybe get curious about something else or a few other things you want to build up this year. And if you felt like 2023 was a stagnant year, well, understood because of double strike, and you just didn't get anywhere, and maybe you feel like your craft, your show part of show business has plateaued, well, then I've got a few goals for you to consider. Number one, get in a class. Right, meow. Get Taped offers many classes to help you break through that plateau. You want improv? We got improv. You want on camera? We got on camera. Though it's not a craft-based class. I basically present you with all the obstacles that happen when you get on set. The stuff that no one ever taught you, like how to deal with multiple marks and why is the boom operator giving me notes, and the director, and the script supervisor, and the DP, so forth and so on. And I help you understand how to work through those obstacles so that your craft that you work so hard on can shine through. You want to get better at self-taping in a vacuum? Then what I mean by that is you tape yourself, presumably at home or maybe at a taping service like It Taped. You send it off into the ether, only to never hear anything back. And then that happens time and time again, and you don't know what to do with it. And you don't know if your tapes are any good. And you just don't know how to self-evaluate your own work without crapping all over yourself. Then you can join our Zoom collaboration with Joe Town of the Performer's Mindset in a class we call Get Better Together. It starts January 11th, 2024, and you can sign up right now in the show notes below. In short, you have no excuse for not getting better. Whether or not you study with us at Get Taped, there are so many ways you can improve your craft. If you prefer a one-on-one coach, my favorite human in the world for that is Vince Bizzani. I'll link his website in the show notes below, and he does coaching over Zoom, so you can take advantage of him from anywhere you want in the world. And no matter where you are in the country or the world, there are going to be classes in the nearest major city that you can partake in right now. They might be big, they might be small, they might be in person, they might be online, but there are options. So take advantage. My second goal for you is find new ways to act. Okay, so training is great, right? But you want to act. You don't want to just be practicing. You want to get in the game. Well, instead of waiting for that deal memo to enter your inbox, maybe it's time you start getting creative about other ways to express your art. Audition for a play. Maybe join an improv troupe that performs regularly. Take a stand-up class. If you post on Instagram or TikTok, maybe start investigating narrative shorts instead of just posting off-the-cuff improv things that you're doing right now. Commit to joining a team for the 48-hour film contest whenever it comes to your city this year. Start a YouTube channel. Do an open mic night for your poetry. Who knows? Those are just the ideas that came to me off the top of my head right now. The point is to find ways that you can express yourself where you don't have to wait for permission to do it. You want to act? Act. Number 3, watch. There are so many great TV shows and movies out there right now that thankfully you don't have to subscribe to all of the different services to find them. Ask your friends for recommendations on the services you already have subscriptions with, and have fun researching your craft by watching it. Be sure to include some modern day stuff that is maybe up for awards right now or came out in the past year. But also, here's a recommendation. Look up the AFI Top 100 Movies of All Time and see how many of those you've watched. And if it's a really low number, maybe start going back and watching old movies, to gain some insight on how this industry came to be, this industry that, according to you, you want to be your career and your life's work. Number 4, read. Supplement your watching with reading. Look up scripts of movies that have been produced and see what the shooting script or the original draft look like, and get used to reading scripts. I take that for granted because I do it every day. I get taped. And like I said before, I've had over 10,000 hours of being a reader over the last dozen or so years. But outside of scripts, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of books on the craft of acting, too many for me to go into here. Or you can get into like the history of Hollywood. This one I got for Christmas, 700 pages. Whew. Or biographies like this other book I got for Christmas, also 700 pages. Or books on psychology, philosophy, or even just plain old novels that will expand your mind, feed your soul, and boost your creative spirit. And yes, all of this takes time and dedication and discipline. And specifically in the case of classes, it takes money. But hey, you want to go snowboarding? Whew, that costs money. You want to play golf? Oh gosh, that costs money. If you want to get good at anything, especially to the point where someone's going to pay you for your talent, nay, your expertise, well, then you have to expect to invest in yourself. And here's a thought to help with that. Remember those New Year's resolutions we were talking about at the beginning? If one of them is to quit drinking for the month of January, track how much money you save. Or instead of ordering that $8 venti half-calf latte with almond milk, an extra shot of espresso, and 2 pumps of vanilla, just get some coffee and brew it at home. See how much you save. In other words, before you start to get tense or anxious about the idea of having to get another job to cover these expenses, first look at your current expenses and see what you might be able to pare back. And this leads me to another plug for my friend Alex Collins and his financial class that he's offering for actors. Check the show notes below. Okay, so now let's move on to the business side of show business. And let's return to the snowboarding example. The analogy might break down, but stay with me. Before you drop in on that double black diamond, because you've been now training for years, you have to first get up the mountain on the ski lift. And before that, you have to have a lift ticket. You have to have bought or rented equipment. You have to have the right clothing, warm enough for when it's cold, but not so warm that if it's sunny, you end up getting hot. You need goggles. You need a helmet. You need so many things before you can actually get to that point of dropping in on the mountain. All of this business can feel like obstacles to the fun that you're going to have on set. On the mountain. For actors, getting headshots, updating your resume, your demo reel, finding an agent, cultivating the relationship with your representation, it can all feel like such a burden. I get it. And that doesn't even scratch the surface when it comes to finances, tracking residuals, keeping up on the trends in the TV and film industry, and so on. And if all of this just shuts down your brain, you're not alone. But it may be a clue that you're more suited to being a hobbyist. The hobbyists can get away with using the same headshots for over 5 years. They also can get away with not worrying about the finances because they're getting presumably all of their income from their other real job. But again, if you want this to be your life's work, your life's vocation, then you need to maybe have a mindset shift from all of these things that you have to do, and instead replacing that with the things you get to do. So here are a few more ideas of things you can add to your get-to-do list in 2024. Number 5. New headshots. Your headshot is like the movie preview to what your personality is. It needs to be an accurate representation of the experience I'm going to have when I meet you in person. So do an inventory of your current headshots. And before you immediately jump to booking a new session, check the session that you had most recently and see if there are shots you're not currently using that might actually be more accurate in representing who you are right now. The problem is discerning that yourself, and even sometimes with the help of a spouse or a friend. See, what you need is autonomy. You need confidence. You need to know yourself and not the internal experience of being you. We all understand that we know who we are internally. You need to know how I perceive you, how casting perceives you, how directors and other potential buyers perceive you, how the world perceives you. And if you can't state that to me right now with 100% confidence, then I highly recommend you check out our Sam Christensen workshop. The workshop was originally designed for that reason, getting better headshots. But beyond that, if you're frustrated about how you're currently being submitted or not being submitted versus how you want to be seen and submitted versus how casting sees you, how they actually see you, and all the confusion that can come with that, this workshop will answer that and many more conundrums that you are currently having in your acting career. And instead of giving a full pitch on that, I'll just invite you to come to our free preview event that we do periodically. The next one is over Zoom on January 10th, 2024. Link in the show notes below. Oh, and if you're watching this video after that date, just check our website because we do these periodically, or you can email us if you want to find out what you missed. We'll send you a summary. Number 6, update the resume. Spoiler alert, in-person auditions are returning, not just because of the strike being over, but because of the new provisions in the TV and film contract that will now require more in-person or Zoom auditions happening. But also for commercials, we're seeing post-pandemic more and more of those returning to in-person sessions. And so you don't want to be like me, who just 2 weeks ago, I got surprised with a last-second request for an in-person callback where I had to have a physical headshot with me and a resume. I hadn't updated the printed resume since 2018 because I hadn't had an in-person audition since then that required a headshot. So shame on me for not having an updated resume, but you better believe I do now. Number 7, update your demo reel. Now listen, if you're new to this business and you don't have any credits yet, or the couple credits you do have, the footage just isn't that great, then please do not put together a demo reel. It is not necessary if you're newer to the business. Everyone knows that you have to start somewhere, so do not feel the burden to have a demo reel. And we've covered demo reels several times in the past on our channel. You can search the channel and I'll try to link some in the show notes below. But suffice to say that this tool of the actor's toolkit is often misunderstood, and therefore it could potentially not be working for you very well. Please pay someone, like my wife, Brooke, who edits demo reels, to go through and professionally edit your demo reel, because if you do it yourself, you're editing from a standpoint of ego, and that's not always going to get you the best demo reel. Number 8, learn the contracts. My final tip is a big one, even though it may not seem that way. See, you can get lulled into a sense of protection under the SAG-AFTRA contracts for commercials, for television film, for all the other corners of our industry. And while SAG-AFTRA has worked tirelessly for decades to protect actors, ultimately that can't happen if the actors are uneducated. You need to know your rights as an actor, but also the limitations imposed on the producers so that you can hold everyone accountable. I mean, your union rep isn't there when you're reading taping instructions. Spoiler alert, there are new restrictions on what casting directors, or really what producers, can ask of you in your self-tapes. So you need to know what those new restrictions are. There's no union rep reading your deal memo as you dialogue back and forth with your agent over a specific contract. And while we'd love to blindly just trust our reps in this case, you should not expect them to know more about your rights and protections. And while sometimes there is a union rep on set, you can't expect them to be there every day. So you need to know what to watch out for in regards to yourself and maybe even fellow actors who might be more green than you. So in summary, if you want this career to be fun, easy, effortless, give it 20 years. That's where I am in my career, and I feel like I'm just about there in terms of that ease, that effortlessness, that joy, that peace. Okay, this was a long video to start the year, but it had a lot of important nuggets that I hope will inspire some new resolutions or goals for you in this upcoming year. Things to add to your get-to-do list. That's it for now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on set.